The recording has been started.
So no more CERT conf after this year.
Last year.
So we're no more CERT conf.
There may be an unconference, depending on how crazy we all get. I don't know.
Unconf.conf.
How's Infotech looking?
Looking good? Gonna be a good show. We got, where are we on the numbers? We got more people signed up than we did last year, so that's good. And, you know, we have, as you well know, many people wait till the very absolute last second to sign up, so well, ask me again Friday at 5 o'clock. We'll see.
Yep, I'm going. You still looking at me? Because I have 3 viewers. I have to bring up my laptop to monitor the chat room. I guess we can begin. Welcome to the April 2010. Can't believe it's 2010. Can't believe it's April. That's right.
I can't believe it's Tuesday.
Omaha Linux Users Group. I'm your host, John Larson, and Systems Engineer at the Lean Institute. Tonight, the comic stylings of Adam Haeder and
You're pretty good.
OpenOffice.org.
You're pretty good.
Not many announcements. The list has been pretty busy the last week. Talking about tiny computers and April Fool's Day jokes. I've not been able to
Thank God that's over.
keep up with that thread since there's so many of them. Any highlights? I know you had a few.
April Fool's jokes, right? They get pretty.
It got pretty long.
Wow.
Oh, there was a few people getting upset at each other?
No,
Oh, okay.
lots of good ideas though.
We better save it for next year. Oh, the ultimate tier, 50 megabits a second. If you want to spend $99 a month, and the $90 professional required installation, and the new $80 DOCSIS 3 cable model.
The question is, when is the sustained speed? Not the sustained. The popular speed block.
When they announced the fact that they had the 50 available, I did a speed test on mine and I got 20, whereas I only had 12 before. So that means there's 4 tiers. There's the basic, the preferred, the premier, and the ultimate. So I don't know what premier is right now.
Premier is 15.
Shouldn't be 15 because I'm getting 20 and I'm preferred. So they probably up that to something like 25 or 30. Just to keep up with the pricing structure. But that's all I have.
You know what's exciting going on in the Linux world?
Oh, Infotech's coming up next week.
It is.
That's right. That's right. You better get that. So infotech.org. Local stylings of information technology. Are you presenting this year?
I am not this year. No. They
Wow,
got bigger.
that's a change.
They got bigger names than me.
Ooh.
Michael Jones from Google, Nicholas Carr, all kinds of fun stuff.
And I also have little videos of them talking about presentations.
Should be a good show.
I know I'll be there both days.
Should be fun. Yep. Nicholas Carr is going to be our speaker for the banquet Tuesday night. We've got the other keynotes speckled throughout 2 days.
Hey, don't you have a book tomorrow?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do, John. Thanks for reminding me. It's like I almost planted in there to say that. It's available for pre-order at your local O'Reilly.com. Not on Amazon yet, but LPI Linux certification in a nutshell. LPI is the Linux Professional Institute. It's a vendor-neutral Linux. It's the only vendor-neutral Linux certification. And it's a nonprofit organization based out of Toronto that pushes like I said, a vendor-neutral Linux certification. I've been involved with LPI for the last 4 or 5 years. This is the 3rd edition of the O'Reilly book. I was a contributing author to the last edition. This one I'm the lead author on the 3rd edition, which should come out in June, and it's available for pre-release right now. So order early and order often.
And is there a PDF version?
It's
product edition.
I don't know. No, this just links to the old edition.
Oh, I see.
2nd edition, 06, and first one, 2001. I think they'll probably do an ebook on it, but I don't know the details on it.
So how many people are LPI certified now?
You know, that's a good question. I don't really know. LPI has the 3 levels of certification.
Yeah.
LPIC 1, 2, and 3. This book covers LPIC 1, the first 2 tests, which they call 101 and 102. That's different from the previous version. The previous version, the version 2 back in 2006, was weighed in at about a whopping 1,200 pages. And so O'Reilly had to scale it back a little bit because it tried to cover all 4 exams. This one only covers the first 2. So it's a level 1 sysadmin version. And LPI just released the 3rd test, test 301 and 302, about a year and a half ago. So there isn't any documentation on that yet. That covers some more advanced systems admin stuff, and it's also got some Ubuntu-specific things in it as well. But this one is the 2006 version won a couple of awards for best generic systems administration book. I mean, the LPI test by default covers all aspects of systems administration, and this one's no different. You know, and if you want to know what's in it, you pretty much just have to go to lpi.org and look at all the different stuff. They do a good job of detailing what areas the certification exam covers. So here's an overview of the LPIC program. And here's the 3 levels right here, 1, 2, and 3. This book covers LPIC 1. And it's broken down into 2 tests. And there's links on here for detailed objectives for 101 and 102. And this page right here is, you know, system architecture. Goes through all the details. Booting the system. Changing run levels. So it's a pretty generic sysadmin book. And we've been working on it for, geez, almost a year now. Yeah, by the time it gets published, it'll be about a year since we've been working on it. So,
on to tonight's
so
subject.
that's that.
OpenOffice.
That's me. Do I have to stand where the camera can see me?
You know, well, I got a little bit over there, so you wouldn't have to stand in the light. All right. It'll still pick you up. But yeah.
Okay. I'm Adam Haeder. I'm the Vice President of IT at the AIM Institute. I'm also the VP of OLUG. I think I know most of you. I've been involved in OLUG for, oh God, how long, John? Going on a decade now.
For me.
A long time. Been at AIM for almost 13 years, doing every kind of tech job. Been involved in Linux for a long time. And I'm going to talk tonight about OpenOffice. I think most of us are probably familiar with what OpenOffice is. It is an open source, freely available Office suite for multiple platforms. Linux is kind of the most popular one for our crowd here, but of course it's available for Windows. It's available for the Macintosh operating system. Now we have to make a little caveat there because there are a couple different versions of OpenOffice. The 2.0 series of OpenOffice, which was around for a long time, was not available natively for OS X. But the 3.0 version is available. You don't have to run the X Windows program on your Mac to run that. You can also run it on Solaris. I don't really know of any other platforms. I know on the 2X side there were some attempts to make it run on some other platforms, but those are the 4 primary ones. Solaris, Linux, Windows, and Mac.
They had abandoned the PPC one too as soon as they switched over.
The PowerPC one.
That was like what was holding it back.
If you haven't seen this before, this is the basic interface. Obviously, there's been a very big attempt to copy the very common Office, with Microsoft Office 95, 97, 2003 interface in OpenOffice. This is called Writer. Now notice that this is OpenOffice.org. A little bit of history on this. This application started out being owned and created by a German company called StarOffice back in I think the late 80s and early 90s.
It was a DOS program.
It was a DOS program. It's been around a long time. And Sun Microsystems bought the company Star Office in 1997, I think. I'd have to
98, 99.
or 90. You know, it was 99 because I was at the O'Reilly Open Source Conference when it happened, and that was 99. So 99, Sun bought the company Star Office, and after a relatively short amount of time, they released the code and the application for free. Before that, you could buy it for like $50. It was pretty cheap, right? As a really nice alternative to Microsoft Office at the time. And a lot of people questioned Sun's rationale behind that at the time. Well, there were a couple reasons for it, in my opinion. One was that Sun knew that they were still at the time really attempting to compete with Microsoft on the desktop. They were just on the cusp of creating their big thin client architecture, the Sun Rays, and they were still pushing Solaris pretty hard on the desktop. And they thought, you know what, in order to be a real Office killer, we've got to have, or a Windows killer, we've got to have an Office replacement rather than create their own or convince Microsoft to port Office to Solaris. They bought up this German company that had already pretty much done it. And the other reason, I think, is Scott McNeely, other than maybe Larry Ellison, I don't think there's anybody in the world that hates Bill Gates more than Scott McNeely does. He was running Sun at the time, so he probably said, you know, this will be great. This will be a big kick in the, yeah, sorry.
I should be in that list.
And Kevin, of course. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out. So they said, you know what, we're not going to be able to sell this, and it doesn't matter if we charge $10 for it, we're not going to be able to compete with Microsoft on that kind of a playing field. So they said, you know what, let's not compete with them. Let's just, you know, sidestep them completely and make it free. And they sort of did the Mozilla Netscape AOL thing. You remember when AOL bought Netscape way back in the day? What they did was they created this nonprofit organization called the Mozilla Foundation to continue the development of the source code, corporately separate from the AOL parents. Okay, Sun did the same thing by standing up or helping stand up OpenOffice.org, which is a nonprofit organization specifically around the development of this and the creation of this community. I'm sure there's some, you know, corporate tax reasons to do this. Also, probably because they still wanted to tap into the the open source development community. And, you know, you're this big corporate giant, Sun, not exactly being known for playing nice with the little guys over the years. The chances of people contributing code to a project of yours are probably pretty small, so they sort of wanted to distance themselves from that a little bit. And they released source code. Now, that went pretty well, and OpenOffice gained a lot of popularity, obviously, as a free alternative to Microsoft Office. A lot of educational institutions picked it up. The major upgrade from version 2 to version 3 in the last couple of years brought a number of key features, some of which we're going to talk about here, including some new file format capability, which will be our next topic. Educational institutions have been the big ones that have kind of glommed onto it. There have been some pretty big, high-profile conversions away from Microsoft Office to OpenOffice. Probably the largest one I know of is the city of Munich in Germany. Now, of course, OpenOffice originally starting off as Star Office, a German company. Star Office as a product still exists, and now last I knew, I haven't seen this, you know, very recently Oracle purchased Sun Microsystems, so I really don't know the status of this right now, but the last I knew, you could actually buy Star Office from Sun Microsystems. It was packaged, it was Star Office 7 was the latest version. All you really got there was essentially a rebranded OpenOffice, but you got all these other nice little funky add-ons like fonts and templates and all these nice little things. And specifically support. So if you had some sort of a problem with it or it didn't run here or you need help with it, you could call Sun and they would support it, right? And that's pretty much the open source model around a lot of this business stuff is give away the software, sell the support, right? It's a Red Hat model, it's a Ubuntu model. So Sun had success with that.
I think they kind of de-emphasized it in the past year because OpenOffice appears in the Java installer. It actually has OpenOffice listed.
It says, yeah, and not Star Office, right?
Right.
So I really don't know the status of that, to say the truth. You know, a lot of those, that's been a common thing over the years. Yeah, Jen?
If you get the latest version of Solaris 10 U8, and I think we'll see materials back to like U7, maybe U6, Star Office 8 is actually included in the list.
Now, you're talking about the free for download version of Solaris.
Well, define free. No, this is
I don't know.
If you go get Solaris, not Open Solaris, but actually Solaris.
Okay, so not the open, okay.
Yeah,
so the actual package Solaris you get.
That Oracle's going to
you get Star Office.
You go get U8, which is still free, and download that and install it. Star Office 8 comes embedded with the install.
If that breaks, can I call Sun and get support? Okay, well that's my, see that's my question, right? That was always the difference between the StarOffice product and the OpenOffice product is, and of course, Sun and now Oracle. I mean that's an obvious position they're coming from. They need to support some sort of a corporate product. It's very, as you can imagine, difficult from a tech. Well, a lot of us do it, right? It's difficult to support an open source software project because you're never exactly sure what's going on under the hood, right? What minor version are you at? What changes have you made to it? Whatever, right? So the companies that really focus on the support of open source products are either the ones that mostly have control of it. That's the Red Hat thing, right? They're going to say, okay, if you're running Red Hat Enterprise 4 point whatever, we know how to support that. If you've got some kernel you compiled yourself and you added these 75 other packages, it's going to be a little dicey, right? So Sun sticks with StarOffice and says, okay, this is a development that we can control, and this is an environment we understand, we'll support that. OpenOffice, there's other companies that will support OpenOffice for you, but Sun probably isn't one of them. Sun, now Oracle, right? So, now having said that, OpenOffice has become pretty popular. What I was saying before was that the success of the StarOffice company in Germany, the German government, the city of Munich, was actually one of the largest conversions that I knew of from Microsoft Office to OpenOffice. I know that went kind of back and forth for a while. There were even some pretty highly publicized trips to Germany by Steve Ballmer to talk to the government there. There were some rumors that the whole thing was just a ploy to try to get better licensing agreements from Microsoft. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was sort of one of the higher profile ones. If you Google for, OpenOffice migration, there's lots of case studies on how people did it. And I actually, a lot of you know Craig Wolf, who is he's not here tonight, but he's pretty active in OLUG, and he works in the technology department of the Miller Public School System at the EDU level. And he has been instrumental in attempting to get OpenOffice into that environment for quite a while. And I met with actually his technology team about a year ago to help them come up with what a migration plan would look like. And the first thing that you need to think about if you're looking to do something like that is not, I mean, these things are important, the interface, the compatibility, the rollout, whatever. But the number one thing is file flow. And this is a thing that has been problematic across computers for a long time. Now, most of us are in the technology industry. We're used to some of this stuff and dealing with some of this stuff. But this is new to a lot of people that aren't, especially the primary users of these Office type applications, which tend to be the executives, the secretaries, or something like that. So let's break some of this down. Now I'm going to do this off the top of my head, so I may be kind of wrong here, so correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, help me, John. Okay, Office 2003. This is Microsoft Office 2003. This is probably one of the more prevalent Office suites out there. Of course, there are older ones, right, 95, 97. This one's been around a long time, and it's still very popular. Of course, the most recent upgrade being 2007. They have version numbers on these. I don't know what they are. For the sake of sanity, I'm not going to include the StarOffice specific formats.
Or the OpenOffice 1.
Or the OpenOffice 1 formats, which are the same, right? But for now, I am going to include the 2 and 3 because they are pretty different, okay? And, we could break this down between the different applications. We keep talking about this as one program, but it's really, a word processor, a spreadsheet, a presentation program, a database running. It's all these different things we assume of being part of an Office suite. Now, of course, let's just stick with word processor for now. It'll be a good example. It's what we're mostly familiar with. 2003, it's .doc, right? You've seen a billion of those out there. This is a binary file format. The format has been mostly published by Microsoft. There's a lot of different interoperability with this format. There's open source tools that will read this and write this. Office 2007 made a little bit of departure from this and introduced the docx format, which is 100% different from this format, where this is a proprietary binary format. This is essentially a zipped set of XML files and other meta files. Now, let's finish these and we'll talk about standards. Okay?
The XML did exist in 03, but you had to tell it to save it as that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know. Okay.
They did the extension thing because they added the compression and all that. Nope.
That's the 1.01?
That's 1.0.
ODT.
2.0 is ODT. Well, ODT?
Yes, text,
Text,
spreadsheet.
all right.
Yeah.
I was thinking of W.
ODF is the whole encompassing.
Thank you. And what's 3?
It should be the same thing.
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
But
they're both zipped XML.
okay.
They had it first.
But there are some. I mean, these look the same, but there are some differences.
There's some slight structural changes.
Right. And the first thing you think about when you look at something like this, of course, is compatibility. Let's look at just compatibility between the same vendors. If I'm running 2007, can I open a document from 2003? Yes, right? There is that backwards compatibility. Microsoft has created a legacy upon backwards compatibility. I mean, to their credit, honestly. I have a Windows 7 desktop system at home that I have installed applications from 1994 on, and they work. I mean, that's pretty amazing, really. Now, they've taken a lot of guff for that over the years, but that's really amazing that they've been able to make that work for the most part. If I'm running Office 2003 and I try to open a .docx file, is it going to open? Not by default. Microsoft gives you a freely available, freely downloadable conversion pack. It's called the Compatibility Toolkit for Microsoft Office that will let an installation of 2003 open 2007 documents. It actually converts them back to a 2003 format. Help me, John. If I save it then in Word 2003, does it save it as the Word 2007 format or not? Is it
you can tell it to save as 07.
You can. Okay, so it is a read-write. I couldn't remember.
It should be read-write.
Yeah. Okay. So that handles that. Okay, it's a little extra step, but it works. Let's go to OpenOffice. The same backwards compatibility exists here, so if you're at 3x, you can open the 2x documents. I've never really tried to do the 2x back. It's much less onerous upgrading from 2x to 3x than it is from 2003 to 2007. Of course, one of the big reasons, other than cost, that companies have avoided so far upgrading from 2003 to 2007 is a major interface change on the part of Microsoft, for better or for worse. So a lot of companies, my own included, have not seen the need actually to upgrade to 2007, to Microsoft Office 2007. The saying goes that Microsoft's biggest competitor is itself, in that its old products work just fine for most people. That's why on my other partition here, I've still got Windows XP with Office 2003, right? It's fine. So let's look at interoperability between these applications right here. A number of years ago, when everybody was using Microsoft Office 2003 and we all had OpenOffice 2x, you could very easily open .doc files in 2x. The specification was published by Microsoft. Some argue that 100% of the specification wasn't published, so there was always a few gotchas when you had these conversion programs, but for the most part, it worked. And I can tell you from experience of many years interoperating with Microsoft Office users using my OpenOffice environment, 2x environment, I had very, very, very few problems with that. Most of them ended up being font-related issues, which isn't OpenOffice's fault, it's Linux's fault. So if I had the right fonts, everything was fine. 3x continues that. It has the good import and export options for that format of Office documents. Now the docx changed a little bit, because what this did, as you all know, this being part of the OLUG, a big part of our job is evangelism, right? It's just telling people that there is a different choice out there. You don't necessarily have to convert everybody. My mother does not run Linux on her desktop system, right? But she knows what it is. She knows that there's a choice. She knows why I do, right? And that's sort of how I see one of our responsibilities. We don't have to make converts of everybody, but we just have to let them know that there are other options. Well, Microsoft sort of did that for us when Office 2007 came out. It was so different, not only from an interface standpoint, but from this file standpoint, that people were all of a sudden like, oh my God, I wonder if there's anything else I could use that would maybe, maintain the same look and feel and read and write the same document. And so that was actually a big boon for the OpenOffice crowd. But it kind of forced everybody to say, man, I never thought of this. We've been using this Microsoft Office stuff for years. And of course, I could go back in history. And I could go back to Office 97 and Office 95. Those both had .doc, but they were vastly different file formats.
97 and 2000 are pretty much the same.
Yeah, oh God, I forgot about Office 2000. That's right. But there were changes to that document structure over the years, right? And you think about it, as a corporation, you're storing a lot of specific company data in these documents. And it's not like you're doing a big document conversion every 2 years. I mean, shoot, I've got emails that are 10 years old, much less documents on our network, right? Going back 10, 15 years, I still can open those, right? So it sort of, when that came out, it sort of made people think, hey, how am I storing all these documents? You know, all of a sudden people started giving a crap about file format. And they hadn't really cared much in the past because it just works. But anytime there's a change, it prompts people to sort of think about it, right? So this sort of big question came into this. And I'm not exactly sure the order of how all these things happened, but there were a number of relatively high-profile organizations, the city of Munich being one. Who was it on the East Coast? Was it Boston or was it? It was the state of Massachusetts. That's right. Thank you. It was the state of Massachusetts that said, "Hey, we don't want to lock all of our statewide data, our history, or whatever, into this binary file format that the specification for it isn't published. This one company has control over. If they go away, there's no guarantee we're going to be able to read this data back." So they really pushed for some sort of a standardization. And I don't know if their pushing caused people to work on the standardization, or if the standard,
the standard was pretty well agreed and done.
It was agreed upon, okay. Yeah. But they really kind of brought it to the limelight, right?
ODF was done a couple years before the whole 07 thing.
So you look at this, and of course we in computers always like to think of standards, right? And of course the nice thing about standards is there are so many of them. And you say, well, all right, let's come up with some standard file format. Where did my page go? Let's come up with some standard file format that we can all use.
OpenOffice.
Oh, here we go. So here's an example. This is from the wiki on OpenOffice, talking about specifically how to open Microsoft Office 2007 files. Okay, the files produced, I love this sentence. The files produced by Microsoft Office 2007 are also called OpenOffice XML, OpenXML, OXML, Office 12, .docx, .m, I don't know what the hell that is, XLSX, okay, and many others, right? But generally it's referred to as the, you'll see it listed like this, the OXML.
That was on purpose.
Or the, or the Office Open XML, right? And this looks like maybe it was created by the OpenOffice crew. No, this is Microsoft's attempt at creating a standard file format. Now again, most of you know me for a long time. I wouldn't consider myself a Microsoft fanboy by any means, but there is a method to their madness, right? They're a corporate company. They desire things like increasing their shareholder value and increasing their bottom line. Things like vendor lock-in are the things they really look for, right? So of course it makes sense for them to say, hey, we're the leader in this industry. We're going to go ahead and declare this standard. You guys need to all use it, and we'll get it agreed upon that everybody use this as a standard, and then we're the ones in control of it, and we can make changes whenever we want. I mean, from a corporate standpoint, that's the best place to be, right? That's awesome. That's where you want to be. So, yeah, they named it Office Open XML, and it just so happened to be a zipped up XML document, which looks a lot like what OpenOffice had right now. Now, in response to this, help me out here, John. In response to this, there was a task force created to come up with a vendor-neutral document format, which was clearly open and not affiliated with any specific vendor, and that was the ODF, right?
Yes.
The Open Document Format. Look at this, the talk on OpenOffice. We haven't looked at the stupid application yet. The Open Document Format. A direct response to Microsoft's attempt to sort of strong-arm this standard down everybody's throat was, hey, Microsoft, you got a good idea, that's great, but your standard kind of sucks, and plus it's really specific to you, which was sort of the whole point of getting away from this. So let's come up with this ODF. This is probably our best bet right now for any kind of future-proofing our data storage from a document standpoint. Now, unfortunately, the latest version of OpenOffice, this ODT file format, is not 100%. It's not like a pure ODF file, okay? OpenOffice can read and write specifically the ODF specification. You can get free plugins from Sun, now Oracle, to make Microsoft Office read and write
ODF.
the ODF specification. So back to the original reason for putting all this stuff on the board. If you're looking at doing any kind of a migration, if you're deciding what office suite do I pick, you've got a lot of choices to make. You've got to look at cost, look at support, look at interoperability, right? This is one of the things you need to look at. And one of the best answer right now is this. So if you're going to go with Microsoft Office, that's fine. Pay the money, install the software. I recommend that if you're looking at any kind of a long-term storage for your data, you seriously look at this free ODF plugin that's available for Sun. I don't have a link up to it. You Google for Sun ODF. And start standardizing. It's much more important to standardize on file formats than it is applications, right?
I mean, just look at the list of people who use ODF. NeoOffice, Oxygen Office, all these
and of
different...
course, that's a good point. We're sitting here talking like the only two options are Microsoft Office and OpenOffice. That's not true at all. There are many also ran, JOffice being one of them. The true open source KDE
AbiWord, I think that does ODF too.
AbiWord is part of a FSF, the Free Software Foundation's attempt at making an Office suite. It's a word processor by itself, and you pair it with the application Numeric, which is a spreadsheet, and I don't even know what the presentation program is called. But they're all based on the GTK toolkit. They all have a common look and feel. We use AbiWord a number of ways because it has some really awesome command line automation stuff. We have a script that uses AbiWord to convert, actually to pull all of the text out of a doc file and save it as text. It works great.
No. Did you have any luck when you talked to Miller Schools then that, okay, if they want, I think they stuck with the Microsoft.
They did. The results.
Did they go with ODF or did they stay with DocX?
The results. Now remember, this was about a year and a half ago. So this was when ODF was still pretty new, and this chart we had up on the board here is pretty much my presentation. Then I said the big thing you guys have to figure out is what file format you're going to standardize on. And I pushed them toward ODF pretty hard. At the time, I don't think all the tools were there to exist to help them with it. So yeah, they ended up sticking with Microsoft. We knew it was kind of an uphill battle. But the point that Craig wanted me to come out and make was just that there are other options available. And he even did a cost-benefit analysis and talked about how much money it was going to save the district and things like that. So I think it'd be a little bit easier at the time. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I have to say that I'm up here talking about this, and my company specifically has not done this. We are a 60-person nonprofit organization, and our standard has been Microsoft Office 2003. We have about 40,000 some documents out on our network share in .doc format. We haven't upgraded anybody to Office 2007. We don't really have, as far as I know, any immediate plans to do so. So I have to say with all honesty, we haven't even made this decision yet. This is obviously the next big thing we have to decide if we want to do something like this. And then you talk about, it's not only new files going forward, it's conversion of old documents. I mean, we've got stuff out there that was done in, God, I don't know, all this PageMaker. I'm sure there's still some WordPerfect 5 stuff from some of. Great program. I'm sure there's still some WordPerfect 5 stuff from one of Scott's old partitions from back in the day, right? So every company has this issue.
And there is Microsoft Word.
Oh, Word.
One of the cool things that I thought about OpenOffice 3 would actually read a Word document.
That's right. Which Microsoft Office won't, right? No. So that's a good point, yeah.
Or using OpenOffice to recover a corrupted.
There you go.
Doc. So I've had to do that.
Yeah.
There's things like Alfresco, which is a content management system, and for their long-term archival, they're using ODF.
Interesting. So it's not just like word processor-based stuff. That's very interesting.
Web-based applets.
They're
based on Java.
That's great because I mean we want all the formatting, we want the permissions model. You just think of it's just a text document, right? But it's not. There's many other things involved. It's the you ever turned on track changes in Word? It's all the version control. I mean that's a really complicated thing. You wonder why some of the you pull up one page, type it up in Word and save it. You wonder why it's 500K. That's why. There's a lot of overhead.
They've got their own built-in revision control system.
That's right. Which is very useful.
For a developer, you know how big that gets.
My God, that's exactly right. Yeah, so this isn't just this ain't just a text file, right? So it's a big deal. So it's great that we finally got some sort of a vendor-neutral agreed-upon standard, and it's so cool to see this kind of thing happen. This right here is the whole point of open source software, right? It's the interoperability. It's the, I want to use this piece to talk to this piece. I think of my stereo setup at home. I've got a TV from this vendor and an AV receiver from this vendor and the Xbox from this vendor. All these different components, but they all talk to each other because there's standard inputs that are used. Right? That's all this is. It's getting us down to a standard interoperable, language that we can all talk. Finally, it took us this long to figure out that this was going to be an issue, right? Back in the day.
What happened years ago, we didn't have ASCII. I still remember IBM was
Ipsidic, baby. You
Yes,
bet.
I do remember. I actually remember a little bit about how that was laid out.
Right. And now Unicode to bring all the non-English speakers into it. Yeah, it's
we didn't have ASCII.
Yeah, what a mess.
I mean, nothing could talk to anything 20 years ago.
And that was what the vendors wanted, right?
Yeah, sure. That was the whole purpose for it.
Yeah, my former boss used to sit on the board of Honeywell back in the day. And he used to talk about how you picked a vendor. You had the Honeywell machine and the Honeywell operating system and the Honeywell clients and the Honeywell software and the Honeywell network, and it was all. Yeah, I mean, look at
the third parties that built the converters.
That's right. I mean, look at all this now. Let's think of the little Cat5 cable. How long has that bad boy been around, right? Ethernet, IP, all that stuff exists on standards. The internet is built on a set of standards. There's no laws, right? We all agree to speak TCP/IP. We all agree to speak HTTP at the application layer. Well, hopefully, we all agree to start saving our information as ODF, so we can really start some interoperability stuff. And the thing, I feel like I've belabored this point enough, but the thing that I really like about it is that idea of something other than a word processor being able to represent information in this. How are we storing right now the vast majority of the data we have in our searchable web, right? It's not just the web, but that's kind of the best way to think of it. Well, it's either in HTML or it's in a database somewhere, right? It's these huge silos of data that are standing up all over the place. And yeah, we've got some common protocols to use across them, right? ODBC, SQL, right? Maybe eventually Google will just end up being the storage for everybody and we'll all get it from there. But the cool thing about this is it really gives us the ability to do what this technology was supposed to do, which was to answer questions, to solve problems. It's not just supposed to be data, right? I saved this information I read this great article a couple months ago about how this technology that we have has been great for us for lots of reasons, right? Communications probably being the big one. That's what the net has brought to us, kind of the global village type model. But you think about your jobs and what you're responsible for doing. You're creating documents, you're saving documents, you're sending messages back and forth, maybe doing spreadsheets. How different is this from somebody who worked in an office 50 years ago? Or even 100 years ago, right? We've all seen A Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge, redoing his spreadsheets up here. Okay, it was a heck of a lot slower, I'll give you that. But the paradigm is still the same, right? We haven't really used this technology to fundamentally change our business paradigm. And this kind of stuff, I'm kind of reaching here, but this kind of stuff gives us the ability to do some of like the business intelligence stuff that we really should be using this technology for. Because the universal access, the standardization across that data form, lets all these different programs look in there, and it's not hidden, it's not behind this wall of technology, right? That's sort of the model behind the semantic web. Matt Payne is a frequent contributor to OLUG, and he's been big into that for a long time. And it's the idea around Wolfram Alpha, the Wolfram Alpha search engine, not really search engine, right? The knowledge engine. The idea that you're not just putting in questions and getting facts back, you're getting answers back, right? You're getting knowledge back. And we're supposed to be able to piece all this stuff together and come up with some answers to it, rather than just here's a list of 1,000 links from your search for, ODF or whatever. So that's kind of exciting about that. You see all these different things that are standing edge on that. Here's that Microsoft Office Compatibility Pack. This talks about a lot of different options. Adobe Buzzword, that's a new one. An online word processor.
Ask whoever sent you the document to use a different format.
Complain. Okay, so big thing to think about. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about this, but this is an important thing to think about and to know about. And of course, I sort of assume that all of us are the technology people in our circle of friends and family, right? You go over home over Easter and you're like, oh my God, I got to reload 4 computers to fix this problem for my aunt. You're going to get questions about this stuff. What's a docx file? What's all this? So it's good to be up on these things. Oxygen Office is pretty cool. Okay. All right, so let's actually look at the application here. Not going to spend a lot of time going through this because I think we all know how a word processor works. What I specifically wanted to look at tonight was some of the add-ons and some of the advanced functionality you may not know of, you may not know exists in OpenOffice. And the 3 big things. Let me get rid of this. Well, I guess I tried. Three things are PDF support, Google Docs, and MySQL integration. Okay, let's do PDF first. Now, if you followed any of the tech news for the last couple months, you know that PDF is pretty much the redheaded stepchild of the document format at the moment, with all the different vulnerabilities that have come out to play with the embedding of JavaScript interpretation in Acrobat Reader, and the new realization that PDFs have the ability to launch executable files, whether you want them to or not, and all kinds of fun stuff around that. So that format is sort of on the outs, but still, we all deal with PDF all the time, right? It's still arguably the best format to save something in that you know if I send it your way, you're going to see it exactly the same as I saw it on my screen, right? You're not going to be able to edit it and whatever. PDF exporters have existed for a long time. One of my personal favorites is called PDF Creator. It's an open source project on SourceForge. And all it is an interface to GhostScript, which is a PostScript interpretation engine done in software. And it implements it as a printer driver in Windows. And this is really kind of a neat idea in that you hook this up as a printer, and then any application you have in Windows can print to it. And what you do is it sets up that printer basically as like an HP PostScript-enabled printer, right? So the PostScript interpretation, the application assumes it's being handled, so it sends the data to it as it interprets your Word document or your Paint picture or your Firefox web page as PostScript, hands it off to GhostScript. GhostScript can turn it into a PDF, and it ends up looking great. We install it by default on all of our systems. It works like a charm.
I used to install previous to that, which was you put in all the GhostScript. You put in this special thing that turns an LPD thing.
You did it manually.
You had to do it all manually. Yeah, the redirection one. It was.
And there were ways to do this in Samba too. You could set up a Samba printer that would dump it to a PS to PDF converter. But anyway, so that it's very easy to create PDFs from pretty much any application you can think of. Either on, in fact, I know the majority of the Linux distributions come by default with a PDF printer built in. It works the same way. You print to it. Some applications specifically come with good PDF export support. OpenOffice is one of them. OpenOffice is probably one of the higher profile, larger ones that had this option before a lot of them that I knew. Now, I remember when I saw this, I was like, God, that seems kind of redundant. I can just print it to PDF, right? But not a lot of people know that. So this was kind of a big deal for people to say, ooh, I can save this right as a PDF, right? And this was way before you could do any of this in Microsoft Office. So this was really a big selling point for OpenOffice back in the day. And it renders it very nice. And of course, you have a number of different PDF options. Well, you can control the compression. You can, I don't know what any of these mean, but you've got a million options. I'm sure they're important to somebody. You can do security. And that's one of the things that people like about PDF. You can say, you know.
Do not print. Do not edit.
Yeah. All those kind of fun things. And now, of course, with the advent of all these different e-readers, like the Kindle and the Nook and whatever that can support PDF, I don't think this document format is probably going anywhere. It's pretty popular. Now,
the older version was pretty pure. I mean, it was just a reinterpretation of PostScript with different headers. That was the original version.
I'm not on the AIM domain here, am I?
No.
Okay. One of the nice things that OpenOffice 3 gives you, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Tools menu here. I should have plugged that in so I could click on that. Under every one of the OpenOffice applications, under Tools, there's an interface called Extension Manager. If you open that up, these are all the different ways to extend and modify the OpenOffice code. And you see here we have an extended PDF extension installed. And also, that's actually an export extension and a PDF import extension from Sun Microsystems. PDF documents are imported into Draw and Impress. Draw, obviously, is the drawing program. Impress is the PowerPoint clone to preserve the layout and allow basic editing. We're going to see an example of that here in a minute. I'm running Fedora Core 12 on this laptop. These came as RPMs from the vendor. I didn't have to go out to Sun and get them ordered. They came in the default setup for OpenOffice. They just installed automatically. So let's see an example of that. I'm going to go. I should have prepared this better. If I know the IP, can I hit it?
Yeah.
Like the old.
Oh, not that one.
Oh. All right. I have an example PDF I wanted to show you. Give me a second here. It was banquet handout. It was called. There we go. My file.
Roundabout.
Yeah, I know. 70 systems I can log into to get this one stinking file. Okay, I got a file here that is, it's a pretty big file actually. What is it? Yeah, look at it blaze. 2.6. This is a great example of a common PDF you get. This is a multi-page PDF that has both text and images. So we're going to see how this guy imports into OpenOffice. Now, of course, most of the time when you think about needing to edit a PDF, what are you doing? You're either changing some text or whatever in a rendered version, or you're filling out some kind of a form, right? I download this form from the IRS, and I want to edit it. So let's see what this looks like. First, I can do the normal XPDF display. Here's what the original looks like. This is a handout from our banquet from a year or two ago. I don't know what it was. But so this is a, boy, okay, it's a big one. This is a 2-page document. It's got text, it's got images, okay, everything we expect to see in a PDF. Let's see how OpenOffice handles it. So I'm in Writer, but it really doesn't matter, right? You say File Open, shouldn't make any difference. It defaults to all files. I know it defaulted to all files. So
that should be in your root.
This is my root, yep. Banquet handout.pdf. This might take a minute or two. It's almost a pretty big file. Okay, it's loading in. And again, this is not going to load it in as a document, right? It's in the Draw program. See it up here, Draw. But notice that so far it's pretty good. Let me zoom in here. Okay, I missed the big image at the top here. If I go back and look at the XPDF, I missed the big background image. I don't know why that is. Everything else seems to be pretty good. And look at this. If I click on here, notice that it actually recognizes this as text. And I can edit it.
You might have to change the view to print. Get the picture to show.
View.
If it does, I don't remember.
Normal. I have normal and master as view options. I don't have any idea what that means. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, but one thing I was impressed in doing this was this isn't like, how many of you had to explain to your mother why when she scans in some text why you can't edit it, right? But it's right there. I should be able to change that A to a D. Well, no, the system sees it as an image, right? It didn't import this into Writer, so it doesn't actually see it as like a document, right? But it recognizes the text here enough that I can change it.
As long as the PDF was created as text, not created as an image of text.
Of course. So if I just drug an image into it, it's not going to OCR.
Word art's not going to certainly.
Right. But it works, right? And if I just save this, now this bit me when I was testing this earlier. If I just say save, and I hit enter here, look what happened. It saved it as an ODG, the Open Document Graphics format. I made that up. Maybe that's right. But it saved it as this specific format. If I actually want to save it as PDF, I have to specifically say export as PDF. And then I get all the normal options. Then it'll save it as a PDF. So it's not perfect, right? I missed that big image. But I was really impressed with, even on our logo here, It recognizes each one of these as letters and allows me to, if I really wanted to resize them. And so I was impressed with how well this worked from an import standpoint. What does page 2 look like? Oh, let's see, we got the logo there. We'd missed the Linux logo and the eBay logo for whatever reason.
That's all how to do with the original formats.
Yeah.
Images.
So, okay, is this going to take the place of Adobe Acrobat to edit PDFs? No. But for most of what you need to do, you know, change this word here, change this word there, beats taking a snapshot of it in GIMP and saving it as a JPEG.
Or you're going to take
Which
the
I've had to
text
do
out
before.
and put it in like an HTML file.
There you go. Or you want to copy and paste some of this stuff out. You can do that. You know, you have to treat it as chunks of text, but it still works. So that's nice. Okay. The next thing to look at is the Google Docs extension. And all I did here, actually, I was reading some articles that people have written on cool extensions to OpenOffice. You just Google for OpenOffice Google Docs, and it links right to the URL. Notice is extensions.services.openoffice.org.
0002GB.
Yeah, can be a little more tortured there. So here's the options for this guy. It's actually written in Java. It lets you export, update, and import your documents from Google Docs. Just honest to God, straight up WebDAV servers. WebDAV is sort of is anybody, you guys familiar with WebDAV, what that is? It's interesting. That was a really neat idea when it came out a long time ago. What it is, well, let's see, is this the right way to say it? File sharing over HTTP? Pretty much what it ends up being, right?
What .Mac uses.
It's where is sharing over there.
Well, okay. I'm not saying how people are using it.
Website, you might just well take everything.
Are you going to condemn BitTorrent now too, Aaron? Because the vast majority of it is used for...
No, I'm mostly condemning because people are just using it badly.
Oh, okay, right.
Misconfigured.
You're right. Great idea.
Yeah.
And the thought was that, you know, for better or for worse, HTTP is sort of our default transport codec for damn near everything now, right? And so somebody said, hey, let's throw an application on there, let us do file sharing over HTTP. And that's what WebDAV is. And you can enable that in Apache. I remember setting this up, oh God, years ago. Windows 98 came with built-in WebDAV support. That's how old this is. And you could actually, you know, in the little Windows Explorer, you could type in a URL to a WebDAV-enabled share, and it would come up just like a Windows file share. You could drag and drop stuff to it. Doesn't seem like it's really all that utilized much anymore. You don't hear much about it. But it exists, and it's a way to do that kind of file sharing stuff over HTTP. So this plugin for OpenOffice will let you use a WebDAV source as a document repository. It also supports Zoho, which I don't have any idea what it is. John informs me it's sort of like a Google Docs type competitor. Great. There we go. So all I did was I clicked the little Get It guy here. I downloaded it. It downloads as a, if I can close this, it downloads as a, oh, whoops, I've got to change my downloads directory. As the gdocs_2.2.0.oxt an OpenOffice extension. And I go back to that Tools, Extension Manager, and I said Add, and I browsed to it, and it installed it. And there it is right there. OpenOffice.org to Google Docs, and that's pretty much it. Once I did that, I now got this handy-dandy little toolbar over here. I'm going to go ahead and close this guy and open up Writer. It's a little more obvious how this works. Okay, I got Writer open right here. This is the dock bar that I have now for this extension. Yeah, in fact, if I de-dock it, then you can see. How do I do that? Just drag it over here. There you go. So that's what it's these five options here. Export what I'm currently working on to Google Docs. Import it from. There's the Zoho, and there's the WebDAV. Okay. So what I first say is import from. And you have to have Java 1.5 installed on here for it to work. That came by default with my Fedora install, so I don't have to do anything special. Here's where you log in. Everybody please turn off your network sniffers. And I say get list. It's going to log into my Google Docs share, and it's going to show me all the documents I have available. Now, one thing I did run into when I was testing this earlier is that if you're just opening up a regular document on your hard drive, like say I have Writer open, and I say File Open, and I open up a spreadsheet. OpenOffice is smart enough to open up the spreadsheet program for me and stick it in there. Well, I found out that this extension isn't that smart. So I'm in Writer right now. If I try to open a Google spreadsheet, it'll error out at me. So I'm going to specifically open up a text file. Here we go. This. Oh no, I can't do that. That's a spreadsheet. And I know that because it says right here .ods. I know this here. This is a very simple text file I have in Google Docs. And see what my options are here. I can set it to auto update, which means that every time I save it by default, it'll push it back to Google Docs in real time. I have some other options here. If I just want to download it and mess with it myself, that's fine. I'm going to say auto update. I'm going to say open. See the little download thing. And all this was a simple one-page text document, right? Now, at the same time, to prove this is working, let me go ahead and log into Google Docs. If I could type my password right. Okay, let me actually open that document. Promosis. Okay, just text file, right? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to make a change to it. I'm going to put a couple extra spaces in here. I'm going to save this guy. I'm going to go back to Google Docs. It's not going to be exactly real time because there's got to be some sync time. But pretty soon, hopefully, it did it in a few seconds a couple hours ago. Can't see that. Try to get rid of it. Oh, sure, now it's not going to notify me. I wonder why. We did this a couple hours ago, and it did it within a couple seconds. I'll save it again. It notified me that the document was changed and somebody else was editing it. All right, well, you know, when you do these in front of a bunch of people, it never works, right? But, well, let's try this. I don't even need this anymore. I'm going to release all but this one line and save it and close this application. I'm going to close this guy now. I'm going to navigate away. I'm going to reopen this again. There. So there, it pushed my changes back. There was the information, pretty easy. I did the same thing. I still have this little guy open right here. I can close this. I did the same thing with a spreadsheet, and it worked just fine. So that's a pretty nice feature. You can use Google Docs as your document repository. You don't have to use the Google document format. The Google document export natively handles ODT files and XLS files, all these other file formats. So that's pretty handy if you're doing collaboration with other people, but you don't want to use sort of the limited set of tools that exist in the Google browser. Now, I haven't pushed this very hard, of course. I mean, here's an example. You're doing a spreadsheet in Google Docs, and of course, the number of formulas that are available to you is a much, much, much smaller subset than would be available in a desktop application like this. I haven't been in a situation where I've created a big complicated something in OpenOffice and tried to push it up and see what happens. So your mileage may vary with regards to that. And that's a really good example. Google Docs is a great example of where obviously Google thinks a lot of the world is going. Microsoft has a pretty big cloud component built into their Office Live add-on as well. And one of the things that Google realized, and I think that OpenOffice could probably take a lesson from, is that 95% of the people that are using these applications don't use more than about 20% of the functionality that exists in them, right? And you say, oh, that's why something like Abby Word is so nice. It's very much scaled down. It runs on a lot lower hardware. It's got a smaller memory footprint. It does mostly what I want. These programs, I always use Microsoft Word as an example. It's a platform, right? There's a whole programming language built into it. There's automation tools built into it. Same thing with Writer. It's got, I don't know what it's called anymore. It used to be called Star Basic because it was Star
It's OpenOffice Basic.
OpenOffice Basic. It's got a whole basic language interpreter built into it. You can automate it. You can do macros. All this awesome stuff that like 2% of the users use. So, and
I think some of the extensions use some of the basic stuff.
Okay, that's great. But that's the reason why I think something like Google Docs, other than the nice thing about that it's free and it's available from anywhere in the browser, right, has really taken off because people realize, God, I don't need all these stupid bells and whistles, right? I want to share this spreadsheet with my wife while she's at work and I'm at work. Easiest way to do it. So now this is another option if you're used to this and you want to have this interface via. It's pretty slick.
There was a thing called Docverse, which is like the same thing for Microsoft Office. And Google just bought them.
Oh, no kidding. So it was a vendor neutral or a third-party document repository type setup that integrated into Microsoft Office?
It was a Microsoft Office item add-in that went to Google Docs.
Oh, I see. So it actually used Google. Okay.
Yeah, so it's now in the application marketplace for Google Apps.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Is it free?
I believe it is.
Okay. Now, of course, Microsoft has their own called Microsoft Live, which I've never used, but I know some people that do. So I don't know what your editing options are in a browser, but I know that it's document storage. Okay, last thing I want to look at is MySQL integration. Now, of course, on the Microsoft Office side, we're all at least familiar in passing with everybody's favorite monster application called Microsoft Access, of which lamentations have been made. OpenOffice's version of this, if you can kind of call it that, is called Base.
You know, originally StarOffice had a database, but they had to remove it because it was developed by another party.
Database.
Yeah.
And if you old mainframe people from back in the day remember the database, that's what we used to run on the South Dakota mainframe back in my history. Yeah, that was actually integrated into StarOffice back in the day. They had to remove that. So there actually is database functionality built directly into OpenOffice, similar to Access. Now, you would consider Access a database front end. It has its own file format, right? The .mdd file. I don't even know what the new one is. MDBX.
I think it's ODB.
Really? Sneaky bastards.
Open data.
Anyway. But it also, the power of Access really was that it sort of brought the database to the masses. And we had all these nice little wizards and forms and views that let the power user create a nice little data entry point and this awesome report, and you didn't have to touch any SQL. Cool. Okay? Now, of course, it was horribly abused, and I've seen more terrible Access things than I can care to say. But good idea, right? Great. This attempts to be pretty much the same thing. Now, I do not have a lot of experience with Access, to tell you the truth. I'm not a DBA in any way, shape, or form. So I can't really speak to I would have to lean on my good friend Aaron here for that.
Access is the data.
And I was just going to say, saying database and Access in the same sentence has probably offended him enough. He's going to run screaming out of the room. However, what we really
Database in Excel.
glorified spreadsheet. What we really look for here, of course, is the nice GUI offerings. If you're a DBA of any kind of caliber, you're probably going to, shy away from something like this for your main tool. However, it does have its purposes, and I was really kind of impressed. Not having used this a fantastic amount before not too long ago, I was really impressed with the low barrier to entry they've created for you to get involved in some of the database stuff. And I set up some test things here that I wanted to look at. Now, you have an option. You have a couple of options for database creation here. There actually is a built-in database format that you can use to store your data that is OpenOffice specific. I really don't know much about it. I don't know if it's related to like the Berkeley DB, for example. I don't know. What I did instead was I set it up to connect to a MySQL database, which is what I'm mostly familiar with. Now, if you read the documentation on this, the MySQL integration with OpenOffice has existed for quite a while. You had two options with how to access it. You could go through the ODBC drivers, the Open Database Connectivity drivers, or the newer JDBC drivers, the Java-specific ones. As of not too long ago, and I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but I really don't know what the date was, Sun actually has a MySQL-specific extension for OpenOffice that will allow it to talk natively to MySQL without needing to use ODBC. Well, I had that screen up before. On that Tools Extensions Manager, you'll see that I have a MySQL connector plugin installed. You Google for MySQL connector for OpenOffice, you'll find a Sun download page on that same OpenOffice extensions page. Downloaded, installed it, boom. Okay. So all I did here, and this isn't a MySQL presentation, but again, this is Fedora Core 12. If I look at my packages, what I have installed for MySQL should be 5.1. There we go. I've got MySQL Server installed, and the MySQL, that's basically the client library, or the client application, there's the libraries. I got some other stuff installed. The server, the administrator, and the query browser are the tools, the GUI tools that the MySQL group actually gives you that are multi-platform. That'll let you do some of the GUI stuff directly to the database. Of course, there's the Perl and the MySQL. But anyway, so I have the server installed on here. I just did it from RPMs. I started the server. I did a basic authentication step. So I made sure the server was running. Some of you may be familiar with this, some not. MySQL has a command line application to access it. Now, one thing that extender, or the connector said is you have to be using at least MySQL version 5.1 or greater. And there was something else. It had to be OpenOffice 3.1 or greater. And 3.2 has been out for a while, I think, so this isn't that onerous of a requirement. You got a really old Linux distro, you're going to have some problems. So let's look at some things first. All I did initially, other than create a login and password on the database itself, was I created a database called OLUG, and that was, you know, the simple create space database space OLUG. That's about the extent of my SQL knowledge. And then I did everything else through. That's not true, but you get the point. I did everything else through here. Okay, so I'm going to open an existing, and I saved this already, so I won't go through this, but I am going to open an existing one. Okay, and here's the nice little initial GUI you get for working with your database. The main object's over here. I'm going to say tables. Initially, it's going to ask me to authenticate. This is my authentication for the database, not the Unix authentication, right? MySQL has its own completely different set of username and password. They do not touch the Unix one at all. In fact, I don't even know how to make it touch the Unix one, to tell you the truth. Okay, and here's my OLUG database that I
be able to.
I don't know if you can. I've never done it.
Well, with the SQLs that I use,
you could or could not? Could not. I don't know of a way to do it.
My SQL may allow.
I suppose you could probably tell MySQL. There's probably somebody who wrote an LDAP authenticator for it or something, right? Anyway. So, here's the database that I created. What?
Kerberos.
God help me. You TACAX. So, here's the database that I created. Now, I was messing around with this earlier today. I created a couple of tables here, but we're going to walk through creating one here. So we see what our options are in this nice little GUI. I was able to connect to the MySQL server. It looks just like a normal, you know, you can't tell that you're connecting to something remotely. I can look at different queries, forms, and reports. Now what these are, tables, of course, in the database parlance where the data is actually stored. You can think of it kind of like a spreadsheet, hence the nice little picture there. It looks like a spreadsheet. Queries would be how I'm getting data out. Reports would be a conglomeration of multiple queries laid out in a certain format. And forms is what most people think of, I think, when they think of Access, which is an application that's developed in Access. You're going to open it up, and it's going to give you some sort of a data entry front end, right? And then some kind of a reporting form. So you're going to type in all this information in, and maybe there's some front-end validation, and maybe there's some little help here, and it's going to pull this drop down from another table, whatever. That's sort of the heart of the whole Access thing, right? Well, that's what the forms are, and this program has a nice little form builder and wizard that we're going to walk through. So let's start off by creating a table. We have a couple options. In the design view, create a table by specifying the field names and properties as well as the data types. If you know your SQL already, you know how you want this stored, great. Click on this guy, and boom, there you go, start filling it out. Doesn't exactly give you a whole lot of help, so we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to go to the wizard. Wizard
Wizard.
Badly. OpenOffice comes with a number of default templates that are common ones they think you'll need to create a table. Really kind of nice. Even if what you're storing doesn't necessarily match up, it's nice to be able to maybe base it off one of these and use it. Okay, two main categories, business or personal. Here's some example business ones. I want to track contacts or customers or employees or invoices or whatever, right? So let's say, I don't know, employees. And then here's all the different fields. You can pick all that you want. I'm going to pick them all. It steps me through over here, right? I'm going to say next. Here's where it says, okay, I think you probably want to, if you want to store an address, you're probably going to want to store it as type varchar. If you've never dealt with databases before, one of the most important things is the typing of the data, which is what it is right here. What kind of data is this? From an optimization and query standpoint, it's important to have this be as close to what the actual data is as possible, for reasons that I am not knowledgeable enough to really talk about. But some of the basic ones are here, and of course, there are many, many more than this in the SQL standard, but these are kind of the basic ones. Okay, most of the time you're going to be storing as what's called what MySQL calls a varchar, a variable length character field. MySQL by default supports up to 255 for the length of a varchar. You see some of the nice options here. This is a required field, so MySQL will say, hey, I won't let you put a record in unless this field has some kind of a value. And you can walk through each one of these. Billing rate. Hey, there's a decimal, right? Should this be an auto value, which means should MySQL increment this automatically every time a row goes in? Is it required? How long should it be? How many places should I store? All these different types. John?
So you have a plus and minus down there, so you can actually add or subtract fields that you've already done.
There you go. If you don't like the existing template fields it gave you, you can delete them here. You can add a new one without having to go through that just plain view. You can use the wizard for it. Here's a date. Now, could I store a date as a bar chart? Sure. One of the cool things about a database, when you're typing that data like that, is, especially on the query side, if you type the data correctly, it'll be intelligent in its query. So I could say things like, show me all the values where date is less than 2011-01-01. And it knows that what I need is
index on
earlier.
that field and report file.
Yes, that too.
Which makes reports very, very quick.
Do they have a picture in the
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see.
photo?
When John and I were going through this earlier, this was something that was kind of new to me in my very, very limited database format. There was actually they actually support storing binary data,
16 megabyte picture.
and the type is called long bar binary. This was relatively new for me, usually sort of avoiding storing large binary objects inside a database. But that's an option there. Yeah, 16 meg. I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, so you change whatever types you want. You say next. Here's your primary key field. Again, I'm not enough of a DBA to be able to talk about the, let's just read the description here. Primary key uniquely identifies each record in a database table. You may say, well, I'm going to have employees. This is going to be all 60 of my employees. None of them have the same combination of first name and last name, so let's make that a primary key. Fine. You can do that. In fact, it supports it. Define primary key as a combination of several fields. So if you can guarantee that you'll never have more than one John Smith working for you, make first name and last name a primary key, and there you go. It's really a bad idea, but it's possible, right? Why do you think the government gives us all unique Social Security numbers? So we have a unique individual identifier that supposedly is not used by us, so they can track me. Other than the barcode that they have in the back of my neck, I don't see why they need anything under that. Or, so you can create one, and by default it's going to create one, it's going to call it ID, and it's always, in that case, in my experience, it's good to check auto value. This means it'll just increment it for you. The first record will be number 1, and the second record will be number 2, so you don't have to worry about it. Next, create the table. Where do you want to put it? I want to put it in the OLUG database. I want to call it employees, and then what do you want to do? Finish. Boom, there you go. I now have an employees table. And I'm going to go back to my command line quickly. I'm still on the MySQL interface. Show databases. Use OLUG. Show tables. There's my table. Employees. Now, if you really want to see the SQL that was actually used to do this, you can say show create table employees. And if it didn't scroll off the screen, there's the actual SQL command that the base program just used to create this table. Nothing I couldn't have done in the command line, right? But the whole point is that I did it all from this nice little GUI. All right, I want to start.
Fewer typos.
What do you think? You know how bad I type. Okay, I want to put data in here, right? What do? I write a PHP application that puts up a web-based form that is back-ended on this table, and I start typing the data. Fine, you can do that. I pull up a text editor and start typing insert into employees where values equal, right? Okay, there's where all your typos come in. Or I use this nice little GUI interface to enter the data for me. I have a couple of options here. I'm going to right-click on this table, and I'm going to say edit. Oh, sorry, my bad. That's if you want to actually change the data. I'm going to say open. Okay, here, I can just start typing data in here. Notice that here's my primary key field. It's auto. I can't enter anything into it. I'm going to start typing. This employee lives here. The billing rate and whatever that is.
Don't date yourself.
10/17. I was born in 1985. I don't know what you're talking about, John.
Oh no,
I don't believe that.
Now,
is it this?
the thing about the date, right? Because it didn't save 1985.
Right. It auto
in the
database.
database.
Auto formatted it. How about this? Watch. 1985 01 01.
It's still going to store that in the database in the right number, though.
That's right.
It should.
If it recognizes what I'm putting in here as a date.
Yes.
Now I can put in something. I can put in the 1st of October, comma 1972, and it's not going to know what I'm talking about, right? But if it recognizes, it'll store it internally as the correct date. And then there's all these funky options on the query to represent it in whatever format you want. But the point is, if MySQL knows that it's a date, then you can do all kinds of things with it. So here, simple as pie, data entry screen saves automatically, right? Well, that's great, but it's not as pretty as I expect out of GUI. Hey, I don't want to save changes. So that's where we create a form. So I say forms. Use wizard to create.
You could do that right from the table screen.
Yeah. Okay, and notice that it pulled up form design, which looks a lot like Writer. And it says, okay, where are we looking at? We're looking at the table OLUG employees. I'm going to put all the available fields in this form except ID. I don't need to add anything for ID because MySQL increments the form automatically. There's a subform option. Subform is a form that is inserted in another form. Use subforms to show data from tables or queries with a one-to-many relationship. An example of this would be if you have in your employees table like category of employee. And the categories are part-time, full-time, contractor. You want that to be a drop-down on your form that'll only allow those 3 entries. So you create another table in MySQL with those 3 entries, and you use a subform to hook that back in to limit your options on that data input screen.
That way those users that are actually doing this can't freeform.
Because there's nothing worse than freeform text entry from a user standpoint, right? And having filled out many forms, I've made as many mistakes as you can possibly imagine.
Freeforming the employee name.
That's right. How many times the word magazine is spelled.
On CareerLink, we scrape jobs for a number of companies that post their jobs on their own website, right? The first one we ever did was Cabela's, big company, right? Based out of Sydney, Nebraska. They have all their jobs posted on their website. You'd be amazed how many different ways you can spell Sydney, Nebraska. Apparently, whatever their form they're using to post their jobs, it's freeform on the city field. I have more if it equals this, then make it Sydney, make it Sydney, make it Sydney. Okay, so now we're arranging the controls. If I had 2 monitors here, you could see a little bit better. But what we're doing is, notice that here's our simple form layout. It took all those fields, and notice that it got the length from that limit we put on it when we assigned the field value, right? So if our chart 250, 210, whatever, it puts it out there so you know exactly how long it should be. It has some standard ones here. If I click that, it changes it to look like here. If I do the nice little spreadsheet looking view, if I do this, right? So we got a lot of options. I'm going to stick with this simple one. Okay, the next step, set the data entry. This form will be used for entering new data only. Maybe you've already got data in the table. Or I want to use this form to let anybody maintain any data in this table. Here's some security options on it next. Apply styles. I like the water one. Give it a name. Go. So here you go. So here's a very simple front end to the MySQL table we just created. Let's see an example of this. I'm going to go back to my command line quickly. Show tables. There's our employee table. Select star from employees. There's nothing in there. Okay? Go back to my form. Click. 1905 Harney. I don't know what that means. Alright, I was born in 74. Yeah, there's my birthday. Oh, see, there you go. I put the date in the wrong format, according to MySQL, and it didn't like it. 10/17/1974. There we go. Omaha, country, region, USA. There's another date field. I was hired the day I was born. I'm that good. 0, department, IT. Okay, I'm just, I'm putting things in here. None of these are required, so I'm going to skip them. First name, Adam. Okay. And to enter, see the record down here, it says record 1 of 1. I just hit enter here. It doesn't do anything.
Look at down at the bottom, you see a little disk icon. Go to the, yeah, there you go.
Save record. Oh, I swore that I did that.
And is that an undo or cancel right there? Oh, I see, you can delete it.
Oh, that's weird. Why isn't it pulling up a new,
Maybe it's like a control enter or something?
Let's go back here. Oh, I put it in there. Huh.
Oh, you see the arrow with the little star next to it?
New record. Oh, okay. I thought it would do that by default, I guess. All right, now I'm at record 202. these are my navigation options here. I can click back. I can pull up the record I just put in there. And notice what I did back here was I did my select star from employees, and I verified that, yes, a record did just get, now this is formatted horribly because it's a wide table, but you can see that there's actually data values in here. The values that I didn't fill out are null by default because I didn't say default value. But here, a very simple GUI interface to a MySQL database. You know, so you don't have to learn PHP. You don't have to set up a web server if you want to do this stuff. It's very easy to set up something like this. And I have other kind of formatting options I can do here. If I want to play around with this, you can do field validation on these. You can add all kinds of fun stuff to this. Now it's read-only right now because I haven't, you know,
You're in edit mode.
I'm in editing mode, right. But I can go and edit this form. I can move things around. I can add help. I can add whatever to make it sort of like what you think an Access application. So it's pretty slick.
It'd be interesting to see if you could actually add buttons, like a save button or something.
Yeah, I haven't gone into that obviously, but I did read some things about how to do that and how to put code triggers behind that, have to be event-driven type basic around that.
Even folders like to be a web app or something.
You know, that's one of the first things I looked at to do this. The answer is no. In my initial searches, I could not find any way to do that. There isn't a file save as HTML.
I mean, I know without PHP to redo it, but I would have to, because I work for a Catholic school,
Okay.
250 students. They have an after-school care program, and so about 10, 20 students they want to have a cooling system.
Okay.
They're doing QuickBooks and thinking about doing something similar to that, to have it as a base web app.
Okay, but it's got to be, but you want the delivery application to be a web browser. So you've got to make a version of that, right? Yeah. No, to answer your question, I don't know of any way to make this specifically web-enabled. There may be some, my initial queries.
It's going to be like application.
Oh, as a standalone application?
It'll be running inside of the network, which I'll have one of those for the SQL database.
Okay. That's good. I don't know the answer to that. Is there an option of making sure OpenOffice is installed on all of these systems?
It's only a select few that don't have.
Okay. Because I mean, this would work if you had. I could save that form and distribute it, and if you had OpenOffice on your system, you'd pull it up, and it would, assuming that you could connect to the database.
I think if you distribute the ODB file to another person, as long as they have the credentials to connect to the MySQL database, you're essentially, this is all the forms and all the layouts and everything that it presents to the user.
But you've got to have OpenOffice installed, right? Because
Right.
it's going to call upon all those libraries and everything. Okay. We'll give that a try. You know, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. If you're just looking at developing a straight-up form to do that, and you're familiar enough with PHP and some of the MySQL stuff, I've had success in the past with using a website called PHP Form. It's a little web app that lets you design a form.
Have the information of the child's name, birthday, parents, phone number, then have the building and previous building cycles also being able to set it.
Is that related to PHP Edit?
That PHP My Edit thing? No, that's just basically a PHP front end to MySQL editing it. But I can show you some examples of stuff I made with that. All it does is I can do the back end stuff. I'm not much of a web designer. I can put an HTML page up. It looks like I put an HTML page.
Half the code of mine, because I run an online gaming community.
Okay.
I had to do an almost full recode of PHP 3 to be compatible with the plugins I made.
I see.
That plug into the game servers themselves communicate.
Okay.
That's cool.
Sounds like it. But no, to answer your question, I don't know of an easy way to kind of make this web-enabled. There may be some third parties out there that do that. My initial Googling didn't turn much up, but I didn't exactly do it.
What is the none? What's that right there? Just kind of curious. Huh.
I don't know. Nothing there. Oh, well, let's preview.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I bet you the information is the properties you fill out on the form, like the, what do they call it? Keywords and stuff like that.
Okay, queries. Again, there's another wizard for queries. Now I only have the one bit of data in here, so it's not exactly very representative. But go back to my employees. Okay, what do I want to show and what do I want to query in here? I don't need ID probably. But it's very simple. It says, okay, I want to sort by, I don't care about sorting, but then here's my query. So show me all the records in this table that, match all up, where this field, I pick one of the fields,
Address.
address.
You filled something in there, so.
And then here's my conditions, smaller than, greater than. All this stuff you can do with SQL. Of course, this is going to be a subset of what you can do with SQL, right? Because you can do joins and all this other funky stuff, right? But for the vast majority of the stuff you want to do to pull simple queries out of a table like this is really pretty handy. And it's not, it's wizard as usual. Walk through it, step 1, step 2, step 3. So I don't know how much this gets used, but it's pretty impressive. And I really like the fact, again, that it can talk directly to a MySQL table, so you've got a real database behind it. That's actually a real database behind it.
You didn't hear it.
So that's pretty much it. The final thing, and I didn't really dig into this very much, I don't have a lot of data here, is reports. And again, all this really is sort of a combination of queries and forms. You're going to lay out some queries, and you're going to say, I want that data to show here and that data to show here, and it ends up being this nice little report you can put on hand of loss. So that's not exactly crystal reports, but pretty simple version of it. So yeah, I'd encourage you to give this a try, play around with it a little bit. I was really impressed with those initial templates they give you for the data creation. That's pretty handy. I mean, they've covered a lot of things that you're going to create a table for, both on the personal side. Household inventory was one I was playing around with. I thought it was kind of neat. And some of the business ones were pretty handy too. So it's a nice thing. And I think it sort of flies under the radar because people are so focused on the word processor and the spreadsheet and maybe the presentation program. This is really neat. And of course, this integration exists between all the different applications now. So now that I have that MySQL connector installed, I could set up a mail merge in Writer and use a MySQL table as a source for my addresses, right? I can do all kinds of fun integration between all these because my native connect too. And I don't have to worry about some weird, database format that's on some database server managed somewhere else that is already set up. That's pretty much it. Yes, sir. You in the corner.
Go through the room and see what their favorite OpenOffice extensions are.
There you go. Does anybody have any OpenOffice extensions that they like, that they've used a lot and have success with?
I'll use the Subversion extension.
Oh, there you go. Talk directly to the Subversion server.
The wiki functionality, I guess now is an extension. I think you should have included that with the different integrations.
That's a good point. In fact, I saw that, John. Go back to my. Do I have a writer screen open? What do I have open? It was when I was looking at that export for. Well, yeah. Go back to that form. Go back. Open up one of my forms. Just double click on one of them, and say File. Save copy as. Or no, I'm sorry, export. Yeah, cancel this and say export. Let's look at the export options here. Now, I didn't do this, Rob, but I saw it. Look at one of the export options. It's MediaWiki.
The latest version?
Dude, I really don't know. This is all kind of new to me, so I don't know. That was kind of neat. So it must be saving it as wiki text.
Because one of the things, a lot of the documents we use, they're fine in HTML. It's just it'd be easier if it was all just up on a web page or centralized search. So there's different ways that OpenOffice is great at integrating with different content management systems.
Gotcha.
Like Alfresco, OpenCMS, or Tiny CRM.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're looking at a web-based application as a browser for our file repository called Ajax Explorer right now. Have you seen that one?
AJX.
AJX.
I think it's Ajax.
AJX Explorer. But all it is a mostly JavaScript implementation of like a Windows Explorer type interface that you point it to a directory on your server and it exports that interface. Looks just like Windows Explorer. You can upload, you can download, you can search. It'll search your memory document. We're looking at that right now as a front end for there it is, Ajax File Manager, Ajax Explorer. Oh, they have a example on there or what? The white screen again.
Is that open source?
Yeah. So I mean, not exactly a content management system like we're talking about, but a piece of it. John, did you have any? You've used some writers tools in the past.
A little bit, yeah.
What are some of these?
It's nice for you to be able to do like email backup or Amazon S3 backup. So when you're an author, it'll shoot it up there.
Go right into that's cool.
Then you have a timer, so you can time yourself. Make sure that you're keeping your time.
Google Translate, that's neat.
Post to microblog, bookmarks. There, I didn't notice that before. That must be new.
Opens the writer DB database, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Mini invoice customized invoice solution for writers.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that was kind of neat.
Mini Invoices is built with OpenOffice on its base and relies on the Sun Report Builder extension. So all kinds of nice fun integrations that are happening here.
Obviously, the dictionary is the big one.
Well, you know why? Go up and click on most popular. You know the most popular extensions are showing the German heritage here. The German dictionary.
The medical dictionary too.
Yeah. And I also saw some popular ones where, well, there's an extension you can get. It actually came with Aurora that was a mathematical equation editor tool, so you can do all the different math formulas. Oxygen Office is I didn't follow through on that a lot. If it was a company, they had a lot of different add-ons. They have, a bunch of clip art examples. They had a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of templates you could download. You can actually go to Sun and download some of the OpenOffice templates too. That's some of the stuff I had open over here. But so I mean, cross-platform works pretty well. It's got a lot of nice features.
At one time, Go, OpenOffice or Go-OO was the Bell massage version of OpenOffice. Hopefully, it was supposed to be a little bit more tightly integrated with Windows or Microsoft Office.
Really?
Stuff.
Still exists, John?
I don't know if it's still that way. I won't focus about that.
We search for that?
Go-OO.
Go-OO.org.
Try that. No, I'm not familiar with that.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Your Office Suite.
It's basically Office massaged by Novell for.
Cool.
Oh, that's right.
Compared to upstream OpenOffice, it has better Microsoft binary file support and more WordPerfect graphics.
That's because of their
Novell used to own
deal
WordPerfect.
with Novell.
They kept all their rights to use stuff when they sold it.
Everybody owned a piece of WordPerfect at one time.
WordPerfect
used to be
beautifully.
Corel. Hey, I
for law firm.
lived and died by Word. Oh yeah. Well, it still is. Well, cool. What isn't it still?
It might still be.
It's not Corel now. What is it?
Nobody else
used to be Corel Perfect Office.
Well,
back in the day.
Haeder at one time too.
My God, that's right. Now it's just like the Word Perfect Office Suite or something, right? Because now it's bundled with that Dragon Naturally Speaking dictation software too that a lot of lawyers still use. Okay.
There's another one that's critical that I got to use. If you want to deploy OpenOffice on your network, so each person brings it up, they don't have to
Do the registration thing. And all
Hang
that.
on.
I can't remember the name of it.
I'll tell you.
Well, yeah, that's the stuff you've been working on, right, John? The W package stuff.
In the silent installers, they reference the registry entries and some file names for you to be able to change, so that it doesn't say, do you want to register OpenOffice?
W package is open source software deployment distribution. Think of it sort of like an open source version of what's Microsoft's called WSUS.
Yeah.
Okay. An open source version of WSUS allows you to control
without quick start or online update.
There you go. You don't even have to be in an Active Directory domain. What you do is help me out, John. All you do is you put a little thing in somebody's startup or on there. So when they log in, it hits something and checks it, and then you can push applications to them, do silo installs. Yeah, John's gonna play around with this quite a bit at work. How to avoid the registration window using this by doing a silo install now.
W package is great. There's an extension though, disable first start wizard, and install that as an administrator for share, just like that.
Oh, so you install the program once, and then you install the application, and the first time the user runs it, they won't see the registration. Is that it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it uses that add right in the middle there in that W package line. It's got the package command, and then add, and then minus minus shared. But then you would just add this different.
Oh, it's this, I see, it's this different XCU. Cool.
Yeah, there's the documentation area. So, yeah. And then it'll have options like how to tell it how to do the file type extension and stuff like that. Now I did a document about a year or so ago for some of the schools in town, how to change all the default settings in OpenOffice to save .doc by default.
And not complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. Yeah.
Is there something in the package to set the default location for saving different documents?
That's on their local hard drive. That's like a Microsoft specific registry entry, because you know how you go in to start and you right click on My Documents and Properties and change it. That's a registry entry in itself. So you can say H, which is like the domain login drive or something like that.
Maybe you're not this, or in the templates.
Oh, in the templates.
Or like where it would look for templates and things like that.
So I have it set up, I just don't, you gotta be easier way. So there's a shared set of templates.
Yeah, in the program files.
And the user set of templates.
That goes for the specific user. You probably want to change it to like all users or something like that, or a network drive.
A network drive.
Yeah, it's probably out there somewhere.
At your guys' various organizations, I kind of assume the vast majority of everybody's using Microsoft something or other. Has everybody upgraded Office 2007, or what's been your experience? No? What are you guys doing in info, Aaron? Whatever you want?
No, we're going to be deploying Windows 7 this year, and stuff, so we'll be part of that. We're 2010 control where they end up.
Yeah, I didn't know where the status of that is.
Love the rhythm.
It's about 95% non-compliant with their own standard.
I think about that. What are you doing, Northrop Grumman?
Northrop Grumman is pushing out Microsoft Office 2007. Their software. Push out of that.
What are your options as an end user with regards to anything else?
Who works for Northrop Grumman?
A cynical laugh from the back of the room.
Well, I run I have OpenOffice installed on my laptop, and I also put portable OpenOffice on there.
One that doesn't require administrator rights to its software.
Right, and I actually have both of them on there. And my argument for doing that is, with our Sun product that we're pushing out, Star Office, we produce a lot of documents using Microsoft Office. Well, as catalog as it is, it's not 100%, and it's nice to see that. Be able to bring it up in OpenOffice and say, okay, this is going to look good at Star.
Exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's good. I don't know what time, John.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have any other issues? Anything they want to talk about?
Yeah, so my help me get this wireless to work here.
What is it? Ubuntu?
Yeah.
Okay.
I look to John for those kind of answers. The wireless.
Healthy Helperton.
What do you want me to do? Inside of Fedora or something else?
It'll help you in the bar.
That's right. It's going to be solved in the bar. Aaron, I have a question for you, Mr. Kernel Developer.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching at home.
I have a 64-bit system.